Hello again, everybody, and welcome into the Take the North podcast, which today is originating from Halas Hall, along with Dan Wiederer of The Athletic. I am Mark Grote of Chicago Sports Radio 670 The Score. Happy Wednesday after a Monday night game, Dan. How are you, sir?
I'm thrown off, honestly. This quick turnaround's got me a little bit frazzled at the moment because you do come off such a big win for the Bears on Monday night, and it is a fast turnaround to Sunday against the Saints. It feels like a slow day at Halas Hall, but yet they are deep into the week as NFL schedules go. And so the rhythm that I'm trying to find, you're hopeful that the Bears are finding a better one to get their week moving in the right direction.
They are deep into the week, but they too, the Bears, are understandably moving slowly.
Yeah.
They held a closed walkthrough on their usual intense install Wednesday day. So they are going to be a little bit behind, and it is odd to come to Halas Hall on this day. While we did get an opportunity to talk to a couple of players, typically this would be an open locker room day, which is pushed back a little bit later. So it does. The whole rhythm of Halas Hall feels a little bit off as they start to slowly begin preparations for their game against the New Orleans Saints, a 1-5 Saints team that will be at Soldier Field. Can definitely tell you that they've already started to talk about, taking a 1-5 team very seriously.
As they should.
It happens a lot in the NFL. The proverbial, almost cliche sounding letdown game, but the Saints are a 1-5 team. You come off of this triumphant win over Washington, and everybody in this building wants to keep this good feel going because we know how bad it was in those first two games of the season. So I'm sure we'll get more into the Saints as the week goes on once Dan and I get ourselves into that locker room. But Dan, we have not had a chance to talk to you on the Take the North podcast since the Monday night win over the Washington Commanders. And dude, with all the previewing and with all that happened last year, what was it like there, man? It must have been I can't even imagine the converse that the locker room was relative to last year.
I mean, complete 180, right? Like just complete 180 in every regard. And the feelings in that locker room, the way the game ended. Instead of a Hail Mary, you've got a game-winning kick. Instead of a devastating loss, you've got this belief-building victory. Some might even call it, Mark Grote, a signature victory for those for those who listen to the season prediction episode of Take the North. They heard both you and I proclaim this to be the spot where the Bears were going to get their signature win of 2025. Now, everyone knows you backed down from that. You went on the record on Friday and you made your prediction saying that the Bears were going to lose. But I do say that with a sense that locker room was alive, right? And a year prior, 12 months earlier, it felt like a funeral home in that visiting locker room at Northwest Stadium. Monday night, you had players willing to talk at their locker for as long as you wanted to have them. And so it was a very cool contrast and a very cool moment for this team that I think is starting to understand that they are building a little something right now.
And I think the biggest hope is that some of the things that we saw in this win are sustainable. It's weird, and it may not even age well, but I was very critical of the Bears' loss against Vegas because there was a lot of things in that, getting trampled over in the run game, not taking advantage, I thought, properly of the turnovers. But when you look at this game, while it was imperfect, you had 9 penalties for 84 yards. There are things like this was a good, somewhat ugly win, but I'll take that. I'll take more wins like this for sure. Like there were sustainable things that you can look at and say, yes, you can win that way.
It's on the road. It's against a team that qualified for the NFC Championship a year ago. It's a legitimate win that required a lot of grit to get. And look, this game slipped away from the Bears, in the second half. And all of a sudden, you're chasing a game that you felt like you were controlling for a little bit, and then you found a way, right? And that's been sort of the theme here in the last 3 games, is the Bears have found different ways in each of those games to come out with a victory. And I think that there is, again, a belief building component to that cannot be underestimated, because the next time you're in a close one of these, you've got things to lean on. And it's not just the A-listers that are making the plays to swing the game, right? It's Nashawn Wright recovering a fumble. It's Jake Moody, who was your practice squad kicker, who, when he woke up on Monday morning, essentially. You've got DeAndre Swift breaking out for a big game, Josh Blackwell in Vegas. So like there's a number of guys here on this football team that have shown proven results of being able to make the plays that change losses into wins. And that's huge. It's huge for this team. I think, Grote, you probably saw in the post-game video that the Bears put out the energized passion of Ben Johnson and how excited he is that this group is getting the results for the fight they're putting forth. And then we heard from Ben again on Tuesday afternoon, I guess it was, just talking about how he's very encouraged that the Bears have found a way to win these games despite playing, as you mentioned, an unclean football game. And so it's like, if we start to clean up some of these things that are clean upable, now where can we go with this season? And so you do have a reason to believe that, okay, maybe they're a little bit ahead of schedule by stealing a couple of these victories.
One of the things, Stan, that is garnering a ton of attention right now, and I noticed this. I was not at the game in DC. I'm assuming, Dan, you've watched the TV copy.
I have not, so I'm going to lean on you heavily for this conversation because I have not seen the TV copy yet.
Yeah. So what was true during the television broadcast on Fox with Troy Aikman and Joe Buck, and the reason I mentioned Troy Aikman's name first is there's no doubt about it, that Troy Aikman was very critical of Caleb Williams throughout the game. And I don't think it was in an unfair way, but it was noticeable. It was noticeable that he was being critical, like even when Caleb Williams was making completions. One of the things that he said on multiple occasions, Dan, and I brought this up to Caleb today, was that although he was completing passes on a couple of occasions, Troy would point out, well, if he would put the ball right here, or if he would have thrown it a little bit quicker, it would have given the wide receiver or whomever caught it the opportunity to run with the ball, run after catch, yards after catch. And he wasn't doing that necessarily. And just any time he had a chance to critique him, it seemed like he was doing it. But, Dan, I did not think it was unfair. There was a lot of passive aggressive, I thought, out at Halas Hall on this day from Caleb Williams, from Ben Johnson. When we asked the question, like, Caleb was willing to say, yes, of course, you want to put first of all, you want to secure the throw. You want the receiver to catch the ball. And he's like, of course, there are times where I can be better at doing that. But then in the same sentence, you're like, well, we don't pay attention to that stuff. We don't care about what the rest of the world is saying. It's irresistible, I think, for even Ben Johnson, for Caleb Williams, when they hear that stuff, to maybe get a little angry about it, to comment on it. But Dan, and I know that you will go back and watch the TV copy, there's really not a lot of spots where he said stuff that was unfair. And what you and I know better than Troy Aikman and better than anybody nationally is that people in this town are extraordinarily protective of Caleb Williams, just the way they were extraordinarily protective of Justin Fields. So it is no surprise to me that when somebody on the national stage is nitpicking Caleb, and sometimes it felt like that. That you were going to get, he's going to get a rampage of people coming at him, and they're going to comment. I'm not sure what that's all about from Bears fans and why Bears fans never, ever, ever, ever want to hear anything bad about their quarterback. You and I have been hit with that stuff before on this podcast. I individually have been hit with it. You as well. But it's a thing, man. It is a
QBPP.
thing.
Yeah, with QBPP, the QB protection program, right? Like we talked about it. I have several thoughts on this, and I could take this down several different roads, but I'll start here. The question for those watching on our YouTube channel is: was Troy Aikman being overly critical of Caleb Williams? It sounds like you, if you were editing, you would take out the overly and say, was Troy Aikman being critical of Caleb Williams?
I gotta say real quick, Dan. I gotta say, I have to say this, like. And I wish fan however you want to fan, but I thought it was good. Like, in terms of, we all want to know what exactly how can Caleb get to great? How can he get to elite? How can he get to generational? Because what we've been seeing has been better this year, and they had some really good moments, and we can go through most of these games and say, I'm liking the development of Caleb Williams, but we are always hungry. I have a voracious appetite for wanting to know what Caleb can do to get better. And Troy Aikman laid it out for Bears fans, laid it out for us to okay, good. Like, let us know what's going on. Caleb's not going anywhere. Caleb's going to be here for the next couple of years with the Bears, no matter what. So to get that intel, I thought was extraordinary, and I thought useful and helpful.
It's through an intelligent set of eyes also. And I always enjoy watching the Monday night broadcast copy of games that the Bears play on Monday night, because Troy Aikman can tell you things that you don't pick up on as yourself. He's played the position at a Hall of Fame level. And so he knows what to look for and how to break it down. I'll be very curious, again, with the disclaimer that I haven't watched this particular broadcast yet, to see what I pick up on and can I react, organically, knowing all this is out there right now. We'll see. But I do think you make a really good point. We talk every summer here about Mike Sando at The Athletic and the quarterback tiers he puts out. And it's tier 1, tier 2, tier 3. You go down the list. The Bears are trying to get Caleb Williams eventually to tier 1 and then to just cement him there at tier 1. We're not just trying to get him to tier 3. That's not the goal. And so I think when you're kind of analyzing where Caleb's going within this season, you want to understand where the destination is, as you laid out, right? The destination is for him to become the engine of a run in which the Bears are Super Bowl contenders every time they walk into training camp for a decade, and so those are the standards that are being established and that need to be adhered to. I did think that Caleb's performance on Monday night in live action, watching from the Northwest Stadium press box, was uneven. There's a lot of throws that even in real time, you're like, man, that's a wild pitch, and that's got to be better, and there's things to clean up, and they should be eager to clean them up. My sort of other path on this conversation, Grote, here is, particularly in a short week, and look, I'm not going to be old man shouting at cloud here, but I'm not sure why Caleb felt the need to engage in any of it. I think it's one thing for fans and an audience and sports talk to have the conversation about this commentary, but Caleb went on social media and did some clapping back at Troy Aikman, and that throws me off a little bit, because I'm just not sure. I don't want to say that you got to spend every minute studying the playbook and knowing what's coming for the Saints on Sunday. But is this worth your energy in a week where energy is at a premium? I'm curious what you think on that end.
Yeah, I mean, I think I'll use the word again.
And I'm old.
And so am I, and I'm older. I think and I'll use the word again. Like I said, it's irresistible, I think, sometimes. Caleb Williams is a 23-year-old who lives in the social media world. It's how a lot of young folks, boy, now I sound really old, young folks out there, it's how they communicate, whether it's passive aggressive, whether it's outward, whether it's obvious, whether it's anger. And it was loud, man. I mean, that's your standalone island game. And you did have Troy Aikman just just a steady stream of critiques throughout it. So I'm not going to say like he should be doing that, but to some degree, when everybody's talking about it, I think I understand it, I guess, sure, from Caleb's perspective. But I think that everybody watching and listening and paying attention to Caleb Williams should have that same high standard. I think that Caleb should have that same high standard. And ultimately, you can't, while I get players paying attention and even reacting, you certainly can't let it rule you. That's for sure.
My last sort of thought on this topic is just the understanding that you don't plant the flag when you're 3-2, right? And Ben Johnson was asked on Monday for sort of his feedback on what we're talking about here, and just said, hey, look, like, you've got in this league, you've got to go earn your respect. And I think the way the Bears are ultimately going to earn the respect of everyone in the outside world is to stack wins. You're on the verge right now of having your first 4-game winning streak in 7 years, if you can go take care of business against the Saints. It's not a lot of seasons here, Grote, where we get a team that's on a run. We sit here today on October 15th, and we are now more than a month removed from the last time this football team lost a game. Keep building on that, right? Keep growing that winning streak. Keep putting growth on the video. Keep putting performances forth that tell people that you are to be taken for real, and see what direction that goes in. I do think that there are more important things for this football team to worry about going forward. I think that this, as you mentioned at the outset, this game is scary. We can talk about this more later in the week as we get into our game preview podcast. But the last time the Bears beat the New Orleans Saints, Grote, was December 2008. Wrap your brain around that 8-game losing streak that they have against New Orleans. And as I said on the score on Wednesday morning, it seems like every time you have a game against the Saints that feels like it could be a springboard, it turns into a trap door. And the key this week is to avoid that becoming a trap door, where then the conversation shifts back to a 3-3 football team with a quarterback that's struggling and you don't know which direction your season's going.
Yeah, and you'll hear names like actually Spencer Rattler's name came up today. Of course, Caleb and Spencer do have a history of being teammates at Oklahoma. Caleb took over Spencer's job there, and Rattler never played another snap after that and eventually went to South Carolina. Caleb goes to USC, so there's kind of a built-in interesting storyline. They don't really talk, according to Caleb, but he didn't necessarily say they don't get along. Alvin Kamara still kicking it in this league. Yeah. Chris Olave and Carl Granderson as well. So
Cam Jordan, too, another guy that's up there and, kicking around. Older roster in certain spots. And by the way, Brandon Staley, the defensive coordinator for the Saints team, former Halas Hall employee.
Oh, my God. Yeah, I forgot about that. The former head coach of the Chargers before Harbaugh took over. All right, that's interesting. That's a good reminder. One thing today, back to Caleb taking the lectern today out here at Halas Hall. I was really surprised today when he was asked the question of, what do you think it is that you need to do better? And typically when he's asked that question, because everything. Everything, footwork. He said today that throwing on the run, he's essentially said he's speaking of being very critical. Troy Aikman doesn't have to be critical of this. He was like, I'm missing it. Throwing on the run, which is a lot of people consider to be his superpower when the play breaks down. And as he said today, it's a whole new play. I thought that was interesting and honest. He talked about the hit that he took. Right, was it right before the for the halftime from Frankie Louvu, who's a badass. Took that free pop on Caleb. He was critical of himself of that. I feel like it's something that Caleb can take care of pretty quickly, but were you surprised to hear that out of Caleb's mouth today as well?
I was refreshed, and just gives you something to keep your eyes trained on as we go into this game against the Saints. Look, again, you go back through the video of that game with or without Troy Aikman providing the narration, and you see areas of offense that need to be improved. I think you give the Bears a lot of credit for getting a run game unlocked for one night in Landover, Maryland, and you hope that can carry forward. But you've got a 4th and 1 in the first half where you pass up points to go for it and you misfire on a play, right? Like that's a play that if the Bears had lost that game, we would be talking about, oh man, you lose a close game like that and you give up this opportunity late in the first half with a chance to go for it on 4th and 1 and you blow it. There's a third down at the end of the third quarter where the second game in a row, there's a snap that doesn't find Caleb Williams properly and it's on the ground and they recover it and they lose yardage and the next play is a blocked field goal. And so there's these little things that need to get cleaned up, and Caleb offering some of his insight on his individual focus points that he's going to be geared in on this week as he gets better. It's interesting, right? And it gives you a chance to kind of watch that now with a better understanding of where his head's at, where his brain's at, where the correction process is at, and with an understanding again that this team has got a long way to go with its growth. And I think they're very, very happy that as they acknowledge the room for growth, that they're actually getting results now based on grit and resilience and perseverance.
Yeah, and one of the things that I left on the table today for Ben Johnson, because I guess I didn't quite know how to form the question. I guess it's my assumption that when a new coach takes over and everything is new, and we all know how much Caleb is trying to take in and consume and learn, see, I'm even having trouble asking you this question. Like, did the stand, like you'd assume that this is a year of development and learning and soaking it in, and then things really blast off in the second year of the regime and so on and so forth. Now that they're 3-2 and they're heading into this game against a 1-5 New Orleans team. I mean, we're all doing it with the schedule. You can look at the schedule and you can make a case that the Bears are going to be in a position where they could start to realistically look at a playoff picture. Yeah. Like, and how much does that change what's going on out here at Halas Hall. And NFL is going to NFL. You never know who the surprise teams are going to be. But I just wonder if they expected to be in this position that they are in right now, or if they looked at this year as kind of like, not rebuilding, but just a ramp to next year. But maybe things have changed now, I guess, is what I'm struggling to ask.
That's why I brought up Ben Johnson's emotion in the locker room on Monday, and then again in his analysis on Tuesday, because I think he's made the acknowledgement that, man, this is really cool that we have got these sort of intangible components to this football team crystallizing here in October, where you do have a football team that's very united, that has belief, that has a mental toughness. Like, this team in these last 2 games has had every reason to sort of flinch and stagger, and they haven't. And they've gotten the ball back in the late stages of the fourth quarter and said, hey, we're going to go score the game-winning points here, and then we're going to do whatever it takes to finish the game out. And so that's a huge component for a football team to develop. And so now it gives Ben an opportunity. So like you and I sit here today and we realize that they're a Josh Blackwell blocked kick and a Jaden Daniels handoff away from being 1-4, right? You know what I mean? And so, like, again, I said this to Cassie Carlson for something we were filming for Fox 32. Like, when an opponent gives you gifts, and the Commanders gave the Bears 2 gifts on Monday night in the form of, first, the DeAndre Swift 55-yard touchdown reception on a play that was just a kind of a busted play that resulted in a 5-yard completion that he took the rest of the way. And there was poor defense and poor tackling on that. And then the fumble that gave him the football back for a much shorter field to go kick the game-winning field goal. You get those gifts, Grote, and you don't say sorry. You say thank you, and you accept them, and then you move forward with what you're talking about, with an understanding that, like, okay, now we're 3-2, and we can kind of re-navigate this road in a different way here. The upcoming schedule looks good. But again, you don't know when your own slew of injuries is coming, or when your own slew of poor performances just comes up and bites you on a given day. They've got to continue utilizing that sort of focused preparation that they've had here for the last month, and hope that it carries on to something where we're sitting here a month from now talking about 6-3, and now what? Where do they stand in the division?
Yeah, and I hope the Bears get to that point. And you also don't say sorry in a game like that, because the Bears gave it right back with the Olamide Zaccheaus miss, the Benedette penalty, which negated a Roma Dunze, a touchdown, which I guess brings me to the reffing. And we've all been kind of talking around it to the coach, because we don't want to put players or coaches in bad positions to have to talk about the refs and then get hit up with a fine. But it did seem that at the very least there was some ticky-tacky stuff going on in that game.
I can rattle off 4 off the top of my head here, Grote, that you've talked to me long enough. We've done this podcast long enough to know that I'm not one of these people that likes to use the officiating as a punching bag. It's part of every game. And when you get hosed by a call, you move on and you say that's part of the game and we've got to overcome it. You heard me say that very, very directly after the Darnell Wright penalty in week 1 against the Vikings on Monday Night Football, where the whole world was like, that's why they lost the game. It's part of why they lost the game, but it's not why they lost the game. That said, here's the 4 calls that I'll bring up to you. The Theo Benedict illegal formation penalty, the DJ Moore offsides penalty, the Nashawn Wright illegal contact penalty, and the Nashawn Wright face masking penalty, where I watched the video of that from 5 angles and in 4 different versions. I can't even see his hand get near the face mask. So you're like, what are you watching here that I'm not seeing here? And then these ticky-tack calls with the formation stuff. I don't get it. What's in it for the NFL to make those calls when you it doesn't impact the play, right? It's so close and it's so fine line and it's so microscopic that you're asking yourself, like, what is in it to negate one of the best touchdown catches that we've seen, certainly this season, and certainly from the Bears in recent memory, to call this little ticky-tack penalty because you warned them earlier that the offensive lineman's foot and head weren't quite at the exact spot that they want to be at. It just felt a little ticky-tack, and those seemed like missed calls. We did ask Ben Johnson on Monday about the process of turning things into the league. First-time head coach has got to get used to that. And he said for him, it's just, if he's seeking any sort of feedback from the league, it's usually so that he can coach it differently and looking for, like, okay, what did you guys see here that I need to relay to my players in a way that makes them better prepared? And I don't know that any of the calls that I just mentioned are going to get a real constructive response from the league.
Yeah, and that crew was known for calling more penalties than perhaps the average crew. So we'll just, that's something to monitor for Bears games and in the NFL in general, because you got to call it, you got to protect players, all that stuff, but don't get silly about it.
I've been covering the league for 15 years, and I don't remember a game that I walked out of going, that officiating was off the rails. And that felt like that on Monday night, where it was a little bit off the rails with some of those calls.
Interesting. Few other things I want to get to here, Dan. Defensively, it's always tough to figure out, and I asked the question today to TJ Edwards about turnovers and if there's a science to it or if they just come in bunches. And I didn't want to use the word, but there's a lot of luck involved in turnovers, and I get it. Guy, like the play that Brisker made was awesome. It really was, and then watching him run is just hilarious. But it is so nice to see all the that's, quite frankly, like we always try to figure out identity. The Bears' identity right now is forcing turnovers by their defense. 12 turnovers so far this year, 11 in the last 3 weeks. That's a nice identity to have.
We need a TTN sound effect that says 2018 alert, 2018 alert. That was a year where takeaways were the story for that season, and that team and that defense that established itself as one of the best in the league did it by consistently forcing turnovers. And you were early in the year, you're like, okay, well, let me see you do it again. And then they do it again. You say, okay, let me see you do it again. And then for 3 months, it was happening every week. And you're like, okay, this is who they are. And they're a legitimate Super Bowl contender because of it. And so, look, you create your own luck. There's a football laying on the ground in the first half, and Jaquan Brisker gets his ass to the bottom of the pile and claws it out of there. Really funny on that, Grote. The initial press box scoring gave that fumble recovery to TJ Edwards, and then they corrected it and changed it to Kyler Gordon. And it was 100% Jaquan Brisker that came out of the pile with the football. And I told him after the game in the locker room, I said, Jaquan, he said, what? And he was really, really upset about it in a playful way, and then said, look, whatever's best for the team. But he knows that he got down in the bottom of that pile and had to claw that thing out. The Nashawn Wright fumble recovery, the last one of the game. Like, you look at that and you say, that's a gift. Yes, Jaden Daniels handled the football like it was a smallmouth bass, right? And it slid right out of his hand and to the ground. But Nashawn Wright is anticipating a zone read run there, and he's in the backfield. And the minute that football is on the ground, he's on it. And if he's not, maybe it's just a recovery by the Commanders. And now it's 4th down and they're punting it, and you're taking over the possession deep in your own territory rather than right near midfield. And now all of a sudden that game-winning drive is a lot harder. So I give them a lot of credit for creating their own luck, I guess is the short way to say it.
Yep, that's true. Yep, you are in position to make plays, and every defensive coordinator will preach turnovers, but some teams are better at it than others. So far, the Bears have been excellent in that regard. I thought it was funny today. I don't know if you caught this, but I asked Ben Johnson about, because he had mentioned how it was a bit of a decreased playbook, especially when it came to the run game in terms of the pure volume. And he, as I started to ask the question today, he's like, well, it's relative. And he's like, we didn't use that many fewer. It was almost like I was insulting his big playbook. But he did say it was for that game. Every week offers its new challenges. But the first thing that came to my mind was, they are simplifying it maybe for Caleb Williams to some degree to make him more effective, but I don't think that's something that Ben Johnson wants to ever hear about, is decreasing the playbook.
Well, and look, like if it was a decreased volume of runs that made everybody a little bit more comfortable and made them play faster, then that showed up, because they ran the football as well as they have all year. You saw push up front that was much better than we had seen through the first 4 games. You saw space for DeAndre Swift to get into, and then he got into it a few times and had some of those chunk runs that have been sorely missing in September and the early part of October. And so it was really good to see that running game came alive the way it did. DeAndre Swift, I'm glad on listening to this on Friday that we played a cut from Eric Bieniemy just talking about like this group is going to stay after it and they're going to find a way to get loose. And DeAndre Swift got loose on Monday night. And I think you'd probably agree that it was really cool when you got the Nashawn Wright fumble recovery late in that game, that game-winning drive was almost purely with the ground game. It was let's let our big guys move people up front, let DeAndre take over, and then the biggest run of the night was the 15-yarder that shortened that field goal from 50 plus down to the into the 30s, and then it allowed the Bears also to take the next snap and move it to the middle of the field where Jake Moody wanted the snap. And we have lived in Chicago long enough to know that set the kicker up for where he wants the football to kick it from. If you have that opportunity, the Bears had that opportunity. It's a much easier heroic kick for the guy that just came off the practice squad earlier that day when it's 38 yards and in the center of the field because your running back and your offensive line created 15 yards on the last true play from scrimmage.
You want to be comfortable. Eddie Pinheiro wants to be comfortable. Cairo Santos wants to be comfortable. Everybody wants to be comfortable from whence they kick. By the way, speaking of kickers, I did ask Ben Johnson just to make sure that Cairo Santos, once he is healthy, he is the kicker. There's no funny stuff going on. No Jake Moody competition, because there has been some of that out of the DNA. That doesn't surprise you, does it, Dan, or does it?
No, but like it's still a peculiar storyline that's worth monitoring, because one, we don't know how quickly Cairo is going to recover from this quadriceps issue that's been bugging him since the end of the game in Vegas, and two, it's just a weird league because the Bears took this sort of flyer, a month ago when the 49ers cut Jake Moody loose. They didn't need a kicker. They threw him on the practice squad, and then their kicker gets injured enough that they need an emergency kicker. And rather than having to, get on the hotline and be like, hey, kicker's on the street, who wants to come kick for us in this all-important game? They had a guy that had experience working with Tory Taylor and Scott Daly and getting the operation in the battery sort of fine-tuned, and he kicks 4 field goals in his debut. And so I don't know who's going to be kicking Sunday at Soldier Field. And as you know, in this league, these storylines are always fluid. And so you just got to keep your eyes on them. You take the coaches at their word until they prove that they're not to be taken at their word. And you just kind of keep track of a situation that, again, I think is going to be fluid for a little bit. Yeah.
And just to add one more piece to the Jake Moody signing, they were defensive about it. Like, I remember Richard Hightower getting in there and not being comfortable with the line of questioning about Moody, and he just kept on like there was a company line. He just kept saying, we are always looking for good players around the league, and we see good players, we sign them to the team, and I don't think, I'm paraphrasing,
sure,
but I like he couldn't give a reason like why they would use a spot on a 53-man roster for a second kicker. So yeah, it all goes into the potion, and we'll keep you up to date. No update as we record here on a Wednesday in terms of whether Cairo is going to be good to go for Sunday.
One little nugget, I was texting with someone from within the Bears organization late Monday night, because Jake Moody, I'm sure you watched his entire podium session after the game on Monday, where he talked about having a little bit of a rough stay at the team hotel in DC, where he didn't have a bed as big as he liked it. He says he's kind of a sprawl out guy. Jake Moody's not a big guy, so I'm curious what hotel bed would be too small for Jake Moody that he couldn't sprawl out. And then he said he had a shower that was either scalding hot or frigid cold, and he couldn't get it right. And so it was kind of an unnerving stay at the team hotel. And I had asked somebody, hey, where did you guys stay? And they had said, why? Because the kicker just took a dump on it. And then I got the name. I got the name of the hotel eventually, and then I just wrote it in my story as the team hotel. And they said, you must be somebody with Marriott status, and you didn't want to rile up the good people.
Wow. Oh man, we got so many
Somebody
things.
Somebody fix that shower.
Yeah. Christ, man, leave our guy alone. He's our guy.
Kicker a bed.
That's right, man. He goes down in Bears lore, man. Last thing I got. This is hilarious. I don't know if you got a chance to watch the Take the North podcast without you.
I listened to it. I did not watch it.
Oh, okay. So then maybe you heard at the end when I was trying to translate.
You dropped a 4-letter.
I did. Yeah. I wasn't wrong, was I? Isn't that what Caleb was trying to say?
Yeah, Caleb said it starts with an S and ends in it with a T.
Right.
There's only so many words like that a quarterback can't say at a podium.
Right. Apparently their motto is we love this shit. And I said that, and Layla turned white as a ghost, man. It was hilarious because we're so used to doing a radio show together, and she was just appalled in the very moment. But that's what they were saying, right, Danny boy?
I appreciate that very much, and like that marries up with this sort of mindset of this team right now. And Caleb offered that we love this bleep mantra that they're going by, because this is a team that is leaning into the challenge of trying to become relevant again. And even Tory Taylor talking about the final moments of that game on Monday night said, look, like there's a lot of people that might shy away from the pressure, and their mentality is F How great is this? How great is it that we have this opportunity, that we're on this Monday night stage in a game that's been all over the map, and now the ball's in our hands with a chance to go win it. And I think that that's part of that identity building that we've been talking about, and why that game Monday was as significant as it was, and why I think it has the potential to be a signature win, because I do think that there was just something to that the Bears found a way, and they did it psychologically with what we're talking about here, that we love this bleep kind of moment. So way to get Layla for game there with the cussing.
I like that for our podcast. Take the North. We love this shit. Yes, we do.
New t-shirts, new merch.
Yeah. I think we've covered it all, Dan, unless there's anything else you want to throw in here before we get the heck out of here for another day.
I got one last thing, and maybe this isn't for the air, but it's going to be for the air now that we're talking about it. I got a message from you've got a special delivery for me next week. There's something waiting for me at the offices of The Score, and I'm just going to pull it up really quick because Ryan Porths asked me, do you want Grote to bring this to you? And it says it's addressed to me, and it says sample only, not for sale. And then there's a big label at the top that says contains alcoholic beverages.
Oh, wow.
So I can't wait to see what the special delivery is, because I did not order anything to the Score Studios. I usually can just go get my alcoholic beverages at the Jewel or the Binny's. So I'm curious what we got. I think maybe somebody sent us a little something.
Okay. I wonder if it is, like, real question here. Are there Topo Chico products that have alcohol in them?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
All right, I'm wondering. Yeah. Okay.
What's the name of your guy?
Mike. Yeah,
it's not from Mike. I can't read the address label here, but hopefully it's all above board. And maybe we'll have an unboxing episode here. Maybe for our 400th episode, we unbox it.
Oh my God, you, me, and Haugh. Oh, that's beautiful. By the way, David Haugh confirmed he's in for our 400th episode. This is
393.
393. Okay. All right. So we got 7 big episodes before we get the celebration for number 400. Well, I think that this has been 393 has felt good for Dan Wiederer of The Athletic. For Adam Stasinski, our executive producer, I am Mark Grote saying thank you so much for watching and listening to Take the North.
Great talk. See you out there.